Greetings and welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. I'm Phyllis Hollis, your host. As an extension of my Instagram page, Cerebral Women, this podcast offers insights into the visual art world. I interview artists, mainly artists of color and female artists who will freely articulate what inspires their creativity. In addition, you'll hear interesting perspectives from dedicated art professionals who work with artists and the art institutions that feature them. I'm confident that collectively, these individuals will indeed stimulate your mind as they do our eyes. Please know these interviews are conducted in my Manhattan apartment, so please forgive the background sounds of city life. Welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. This episode features Beverly McIver, a professor of art history, and visual studies at Duke University, a role she assumed after 12 years of teaching at Arizona State University. Recently, Beverly was elected to the 2024 class of the National Academy of Design, and in 2017, she was honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Anyone Can Fly Foundation in a ceremony hosted by her mentor, Faith Ringgold. She is also the subject in HBO's Raising Renee, a feature-length documentary film that tells the story of Beverly's promise to care for Renee, her developmentally disabled older sister. In 2022, the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art organized a traveling museum survey of Beverly's work titled Full Circle, which traveled to the Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the Gibbes Museum in South Carolina. Beverly's solo exhibition, Entangled, opens at Barry Campbell Gallery on Thursday, October 17th, and runs through November 16th of 2024. The exhibition coincides with her involvement in People for the American Way's Artists for Democracy project to promote voter mobilization through art in advance of the 2024 presidential election. Enjoy this episode featuring figurative painter Beverly McIver. Beverly, welcome to my podcast. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. When did you first discover your interest in the arts, specifically the visual arts?
Well, actually in high school, I used to draw. I remember my senior show was up in a glass cabinet in the hallway of Grimsley High School. And I had drawn several of my good friends who were graduating with me at the same time. So I've always been interested, but I actually didn't paint until I went off to college at NCCU.
Was there a body of work, a painting that inspired you?
Well, as cliche as it sounds, I had a great teacher in college. And, I took a painting class as an elective because I was a psychology major. And so the teacher, Elizabeth, said to me, I think you could really be good at this. And I just needed somebody to believe in me and what I wanted. And so I took her at her word and I was like, I'm going to be really good at this. So I just started painting. And
how do you define your practice?
Well, it's interesting in that I go into the studio and I might consciously have something in mind that I want to paint. But once I sit down in front of a blank canvas, that may shift. And my inner voice gets really loud and starts saying, well, you should paint this or you should paint that. And sometimes I disagree consciously because I say, I don't want to paint that. But most of the times I surrender and do what the inner voice says because it's so much smarter and brighter than I am consciously that it's always right.
And do you know when your inner voice tells you that a work is finished?
Yes. Actually, there's a dialogue that happens between me and whoever I'm painting. And so actually every time my brush hits the canvas and the canvas moves because it's a fabric, I can practically hear the person breathing. And so the painting will tell me when it's done. It'll just clearly say, okay, that's it. Or it'll say, you need to go back and do this. This color should be this. And it's always right.
I love that. And so when do the titles of the piece enter the creative process?
Well, titles are practically the last thing that enters my process, simply because when I'm in the process, let's just say my subconscious mind is much further ahead of my conscious mind. So I might not think of a title until much later after the painting's completed and, ready to be shipped out. So, yeah, because it's a different language. I think words change things. And I think my process with painting is like purer than that. So I just try to keep it based in that feeling of I am a vehicle being used to create the painting.
Interesting. Are there concepts or thoughts that connect your work?
Yes, I generally work in series, which simply means that if I start a painting of, say, my sister Renee, I'm going to do multiple paintings of her. And generally the series will consist of, anywhere from 10 to 15 paintings of the same subject. So yeah, that's really important. And it's important because, again, I feel like sometimes I cannot put everything into one painting, and that in order to really get the feeling across or for it to be emotive, it has to be more than one painting.
Interesting. And what materials do you use in your work?
Generally, I use oil paint. I mix oil paint. I work from a primary palette, which is like, 2 reds, 2 blues, and 2 yellows, and a white, warm white. So I mix my colors because I took a lot of Joseph Albert's classes in color theory when I was an undergraduate. So I mix my colors, and then I add a liquid or some sort of gel medium to make the paint really creamy, but fluid, because I always like to think that with each brushstroke, I am applying juicy, wet paint that is luscious and will make you think of eating ice cream.
I love that. Your work is uplifting, so it makes sense. Do you listen to music while you're working?
Oh, yeah. Basically, I listen to music that sort of, if you say woman empowerment sort of music, like I listen to India Arie and Mary J. Blige and Lauryn Hill. People like that are generally the people that are playing in my studio when I'm working and trying to dance too.
Oh, yes. We must throw that in.
That's right.
What does the role of drawing play in your work?
I wish it played a bigger part. I draw out my subject or whatever I'm painting with paint, and I get so excited. I've always wanted to let some of the drawing show through, or perhaps recreate the drawing with a lead pencil. But I just get so excited about color that I immediately just make it all about paint. But that's sort of in the back of my mind, I'm thinking or hoping that, it's one of the things that I would like to just experiment with. Now that my show is gone and up or in New York, now I have a little bit of time where I could just try some new things and do whatever I want, which is lovely. And so I will likely include drawing just a little bit more, or at least have it revealed on the surface, something I rarely do in my actual work.
Time to experiment?
Time to experiment. The sky's the limit.
So what are you excited about right now?
Oh, wow. Well, I have a show coming up at Barry Campbell Gallery, and I am very excited about it. It's going to open on October 17th. There are 41 paintings that left here, my studio. And, it's going to be like Christmas because I don't know what Christine and Martha are going to hang. Christine sort of explained her process, which is really sort of interesting because it's very similar to my process in the studio, in that she says, I just have to lay all the paintings out and, listen to where they want to go and who they want to hang beside and all those kinds of things. So I'm thrilled to actually see what she creates, how she sees or views my work and my entangled message, and just see what that looks like. Because it's a whole different interpretation, I'm sure, than how I saw it in my studio.
That'll be interesting.
It will be, woman.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. Because you'll say, wow, that never crossed my mind.
That's right. Girls say that. I'm also, she's creating a catalog. So she showed me a couple of pieces that she would definitely like to have in the catalog, which I agree. But it's different when you actually physically have the paintings bossing you around and telling you, I want to be over here by myself on this wall. I need space.
And that's why we want to live with art, because it's alive. How do you keep learning?
Well, I teach. I teach at Duke University, and I'm around young people all the time. I've been teaching for 30 years, and, it's totally an exchange. I learn from my students. They learn from me, and actually I can get them to try things that I'm thinking about. Like the drawing part, I don't tell them I'm thinking about it, but it's like, why didn't you consider this as a solution? And they'll do it. I'm like, oh, that worked. But try that when I get home, Yeah, and I look at art. I look at contemporary artists. I love the Canopy movie channel where they have the arts. I looked at John Dubuffet last night talking about his work. And I just drooled over the paintings because, he was a person who actually was able to use paint, use pencil, use collage, use all those things that I love to use and make them work.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Do you feel Black art can be defined?
I think, again, with labels, I think it sort of puts you in a box. And, I like to think of my work as something that we experience as human beings, regardless of your color, sexual orientation, gender, whatever. So I would hate for someone to come to my artwork and say, oh, this is Black art, because you're Black and it's Black. Okay. I would hate for that to happen because they're missing the gift of what it is I'm trying to spread by getting locked into me as a Black artist. But white people ask me all the time, do you paint white people? So I made sure with this show that's going up that I had at least one white person in it so that nobody would ask me, do you paint white people? Because, that's like me asking a famous artist that's white, if they paint Black people.
Right, right. While you're working on a piece, do you think about who your audience is?
No. There's this time, again, when I go into the studio and I'm sitting just quietly listening, that I make everybody from my teachers, friend, gallery dealer, everybody is yelling their opinion at me about what I should and should not be doing in the studio. And I thank them for their input. And then I ask them all to leave the room. So I don't think about audience. The audience is the human race, basically. So if you're human and you're experiencing human emotions, then you're the audience.
Love that. So what do you enjoy most about your practice?
Well, this is funny because if I weren't so frugal, I would use way more paint. But because I feel like I'm going to run out of paint, I never allow myself to squirt more than what I need on the palette. And it's completely stupid, but it's just about growing up poor. And so I have things built in, like I might have 3 sets of my primary palette of paint in 3 different caddies, right? So that I can see that I'm not going to run out of paint. And if I do, it's okay. I can buy some more. But it really is hard to, I would love to have some big gallon cans of paint that I could just slap on and use really like icing on a cake. Like just slap it on there, but I haven't. I'm too frugal to do that. And I don't want to get my brushes dirty. What's another issue?
So what does your workspace look like? What does your studio look like?
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. I just completed this year building a 2,500 square foot studio space with 14-foot ceilings, and it's very open. I have 4 walls that I can work on simultaneously. I asked the builder not to put windows in the middle of the walls because they take up space, and I like to paint directly on the wall. So it's a gorgeous space. I mean, every time I go in there, I'm happy to be there. It's like a refuge. I mean, I just love being in there. And every night when I get ready to leave, I just did this as recent as last night. Get ready, I look back as I'm opening the door and I say, have a good night, studio. See you tomorrow. And I cut the lights off. So it's a wonderful, safe space for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. If you weren't a visual artist or art professor, what other career path do you think you would have chosen?
Well, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I really wanted to be a professional clown.
Ah.
So much to the point where I went and tried out because the average age of clowns joining the circus was 28. At the time, I was 27. And I tried out for Ringgold Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Oh, gosh.
In Greensboro. Because that was my first love, outside of the, where I could identify myself as not a person from the projects or poor or Black or female. I could just be this clown disguised as a cute, blonde something. And that was what I wanted to pursue, but I didn't get the invitation to go to clown college. So I had to pivot and go to graduate school in painting.
What a pivot. It's a good pivot.
Listen, my mother was thrilled. She was like, oh, thank God you're not going to be a clown. I was just concerned about what I was going to tell my friends. You want to be a clown? Traveling on a train with stinky animals? And
a professional clown. Wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
I love that. Okay. So on a serious note, what do you feel is the purpose of art?
Well, I love it when I read in a comment book about my art and people are saying, thank you so much. When my retrospective started in the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art, there were so many people who wrote me and said, I stood in front of this painting and it made me cry, and I lost my relatives too. And so all of that message back saying, thank you for helping me not to feel guilty about feeling, like my mentally disabled sister is sucking all the air out of the room. Or, thank you for loving your father, even though he wasn't present with you growing up. So, very much like my studio, the work will give you sort of a refuge to say, it's okay. What you experience is totally human, and you're experiencing human emotions, and you wouldn't be experiencing them if you weren't human. So I love when I get that kind of feedback because I think that it can, art makes a difference. I have some political pieces up, like working with People for the American Way, and they just put up a mural of one of my paintings in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's just a friend of mine, Clarence, this Black guy who has his hat on backwards, and he's pointing like Uncle Sam saying, you got to vote. There's a vote across the top of it. And I love it. I love it. And I think that it does make a difference, that people will get out and vote, especially the Black male. I think they need to see another Black male saying, hey, this is important. And not voting is voting for the wrong team. So you must vote.
Yeah. That's lovely. Art is impactful, that's for sure. I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for making me laugh. This is our last question. As an artist, as a teacher of young minds, how do you want to impact our society and the world we live in today?
Oh, wow. I think that artists are the people who can make a difference through their art that will impact other people. So I want to teach young people really some basic skills like just being kind and being polite and nice and a good human being. So, and I think that that can happen through painting. I hope, I know it can happen. I mean, we just need, especially young people, they're so impatient and they feel like they don't know any history or anything like that. And, they forget about simple privileges that have been afforded to them because somebody else has worked hard or lost their lives or marched so that they could have those opportunities. So yeah, like abortion, the young people don't really want to vote because they've never had to seek an illegal abortion or go to another state or do anything like that. So they need to vote because it definitely affects them directly. If not them, their kids.
Long term. Yes, it's so important to vote correctly.
Right.
All the way down.
Right.
Thank you so much, Beverly. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. For additional content, please visit cerebralwomen.com and be sure to follow Cerebral Women on Instagram.